My name is Martha Hayes, and I am 78 years old. For decades, my life was defined by the silent, absolute truth of numbers. I worked as a head bookkeeper for a local bank. I was the one who spotted the extra zero that threw the daily balance off, the one who tracked down the missing decimal point. I didn't deal with high-flying corporate finance. I dealt with accuracy. If the numbers don't balance, someone is stealing, and that is a fact as reliable as the sunrise. I retired, thinking my days of checking ledgers were done. But then the digital age brought the scams right to my quiet home. The email arrived, promising me quick and easy riches through a website called Easy Money Crypto. It claimed that if I sent them just a little bit of money, they could use their proprietary algorithm to multiply it instantly. I smelled a fraud instantly, but I decided to treat it not as a threat, but as an opportunity to audit a broken system. Then the scammer, who called himself Mr. Smith, added insult to injury. He called me personally, his voice smooth and condescending, insisting that the high-speed technical crypto world was too complicated for a woman my age to understand, but he would graciously manage my funds for a small fee. That was his first real mistake. My intelligence may be old, but it is not slow. I felt a cold knot of professional anger tighten in my chest. I decided right then I wouldn't just ignore him, I would expose him. I agreed to send him a test amount, a simple, clean $100. This was my entry fee, my ticket inside the operation. I followed his instructions, and the moment the deposit page loaded, my bookkeeper's instinct flared. I spotted the crucial flaw. The confirmation screen, which was supposed to look sleek and professional, was messy. The text was slightly misaligned, and there was a glaring, simple typo in the disclaimer text. It was the mark of a cheap, low-effort operation that was rushed into production. A real high finance company would never tolerate such sloppy errors. This confirmed they were thieves, not investors. Mr. Smith thought he had successfully swindled $100 from an old lady. He was wrong. That $100 was not a loss. It was a strategically placed tracking device. I had secured the most critical piece of evidence that scammers always overlook, the transaction receipt number. This unique code was the single, immutable public record of my money leaving my account. The numbers may have left my hands, but the truth of the transaction was now forever recorded, and I held the key. Over the next few days, Mr. Smith and his website put on a dazzling false show. The Easy Money Crypto dashboard displayed my initial $100 magically growing to $250. It was completely fictional, designed to ignite greed. He sent me eager, persuasive emails, urging me to invest thousands more to capitalize on the enormous growth. I ignored every word and every colorful graph. I was focused only on the trail of my $100 receipt number. I decided to test his system, playing the part of the foolish, excited victim. I emailed Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, this profit is wonderful. I need to test the withdrawal process, please. I need to take out just $50 of the profit to buy my grandson a gift. The response was instantaneous and arrogant. The withdrawal button vanished from the website entirely, and Mr. Smith sent a curt email stating that all withdrawals were on hold due to a mandatory security review that required additional investment. He added, "Perhaps this fast-moving technical world is a bit too complicated for a woman your age to understand, but he would graciously manage your funds for a small fee." That was his first real mistake. My intelligence may be old, but it is not slow. I felt a cold knot of professional anger tighten in my chest. I decided right then I wouldn't just ignore him. I would expose him. While he was smugly staring at his profitable fake dashboard, I was quietly printing out the transaction receipt that confirmed the $100 had moved. I knew that in the high-speed world of digital finance, Every action leaves a digital ghost, a permanent record on the ledger. Mr. Smith had control of the funds, but he did not control the public record of their movement. Most victims defeated by the withdrawal block would simply mourn their loss and delete the evidence. But my decades as a bookkeeper taught me that the receipt is the only truth. That long, complex string of letters and numbers on the paper receipt was the crucial key to unlocking the truth. It was the only piece of evidence he couldn't erase, and I was about to use it to follow him through the digital maze he had created. My home office became my audit room. I ran the transaction receipt number through a free online tool, a type of simplified explorer used by amateur auditors. I wanted to see exactly where my $100 went after it hit the scammer's initial account. I expected a single hidden account. What I found was a shocking display of organized crime. The analysis tool revealed that the moment my $100 arrived, it was instantly cut into 10 different small pieces and diverted into 10 completely separate, hidden digital accounts. It was a dizzying visual map, a financial maze built specifically to confuse law enforcement and auditors. Seeing my clean, traceable money instantly fragmented into 10 dark corners was frustrating. I felt the familiar weight of a ledger that refused to balance, amplified tenfold by the complexity of the digital system. It was designed to make anyone quit, convinced the money was hopelessly lost. I spent hours staring at the screen, watching the 10 hidden accounts transfer money between each other in random, confusing patterns. It was impossible to follow the path of the money itself. The trails were intentionally cold. My mind, however, focused on the underlying logic. I told myself, the money may be confusing, but the logic of finance must be simple. They had to be using a system. They had to be cutting corners. I returned to the basics of bookkeeping. In any financial transfer, there is a fee required to process the movement of funds. I realized to operate 10 different accounts and constantly transfer funds between them, the scammers would have to pay thousands of small fees every day. Setting up 10 separate funding accounts would be complicated and prone to error. I looked closer at the transaction details, not at the amounts being transferred, but at the tiny fractional amounts being paid to the network. And then I saw it. The first break in the maze, the error that revealed the entire system.
I found the crucial operational mistake, the source of all the service fees. I noticed that all 10 hidden accounts and every single transaction they made paid those tiny fees from one single special account. They were too lazy and cheap to set up 10 separate funding sources, so they centralized their operational costs. This single dedicated account, the fee wallet, was the hidden financial engine powering their entire criminal network. It was the master key, completely visible on the public record, waiting to be found by anyone patient enough to look past the large numbers and focus on the tiny fees. The fee wallet was the hub, but it was still anonymous. It was a digital address with no name attached. I knew that to complete the audit, I had to find the one transaction that would link the anonymous crime hub to a real person. I needed the moment the fee wallet converted its digital profits into real-world cash to pay for expenses like rent, luxury goods, or salaries. This conversion point is the single crucial moment where anonymity always dies. I traced the fee wallet's entire transaction history. It was funding scams for thousands of people, processing millions of dollars worth of fraudulent transfers. I followed the flow of funds, looking for any sign of a transfer to a traditional, regulated financial institution. Most of the transactions went to other untraceable locations. But then I found the major flaw, a transaction dating back over a year, in the early days of the scam. This transfer was large, worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it was sent to an online financial institution that I instantly recognized as a major, respected online bank. This bank was the crucial mistake. I knew that this specific bank required a rigorous Know Your Customer (KYC) process. You could not open an account there, let alone deposit that kind of money, without providing a real government-issued photo ID, a real address, and a real bank account number. The scammers had made a fatal error by linking their anonymous digital profits to a traceable real-world identity held by a regulated bank. The evidence was recorded forever, waiting for the bookkeeper to find it. I now had the complete audit trail. The flow went from my $100 receipt, through the maze of 10 accounts, to the fee wallet hub, and finally through a single fatal transaction to the exit bank. This exit bank held the one piece of evidence that could send Mr. Smith to prison: his real name and address. My job as an auditor was complete, but my job as a citizen was just beginning. I contacted the exit bank, politely presenting my findings, the specific transaction IDs, the dates, and the amount transferred to the KYC-linked exit wallet. Their response was expected, but frustrating. "Madam, due to strict privacy regulations, we cannot release any customer identification data to a private citizen." The real name was locked away behind a digital wall of regulation. I knew I couldn't get the identity myself. I needed the full weight of the FBI to demand it. But the FBI moves slowly on simple fraud complaints. I needed to prove they were dealing with a federal crime, money laundering, and I needed to present the evidence so clearly that they would have to act instantly. I couldn't send them a complex report full of technical jargon. I needed a solution that was simple, visual, and undeniable. I sat back, feeling the decades of financial knowledge fighting against the modern digital bureaucracy. I realized the best way to prove the complexity of the crime was to make it extremely simple. I decided to ignore all the digital tracing tools and go back to the single tool I trusted most: a piece of paper and a marker. My goal was to create a physical, undeniable map of the entire financial operation. I went to the local stationery store and purchased a large poster board and a set of bright, distinct markers. My goal was to create a physical, undeniable map of the entire financial operation. I returned to my office and meticulously drew out the crime using the logic of a simple bank ledger. First, a small blue box was labeled Martha's $100 receipt. A thick red arrow immediately led from it to a chaotic cluster of boxes labeled 10 hidden accounts. This visualized the confusing maze. Next, I drew a large, solid black circle labeled the Fee Wallet Hub, and drew thin black lines connecting it to every one of the 10 hidden accounts, proving its centralized control. Finally, a clear, bold gold arrow shot out from the Fee Wallet Hub and pointed directly to a large box labeled Exit Bank, real name and address required. The map was simple, visual, and devastating. It didn't rely on complex crypto terms. It relied on the basic, immutable logic of financial flow. I showed the map to my grandson when he stopped by. He laughed out loud. "Grandma, no one uses poster boards. Why didn't you just use a digital flow chart?" he asked, completely missing the point. I patiently explained the crucial difference. "This map, dear, is not about technology. This map proves federal money laundering. It shows a system deliberately designed to hide money from the IRS and the government. The police may be slow to chase a small fraud, but the FBI moves instantly when you give them clear evidence of money laundering, especially when the trail leads directly to a bank account with a real name on it." The physical map combined with the real-world tracking number of the exit bank was the perfect weapon. It translated the anonymous digital crime into a federal offense that demanded immediate action. The moment of truth had arrived. I carefully photographed my humiliating map, ensuring that all the marker labels and the unique transaction numbers were perfectly legible. I uploaded the photos and the original transaction receipt to a secure folder. I drove to the local library, using their secure private computer terminals to protect my home network. I went to the FBI's online cyber tip line. I didn't write a long, emotional account of being scammed. I wrote a concise, formal note that spoke the language of federal agents. Major financial laundering operation. The attached document, visual map, and forensic receipt numbers traces the flow of illegal funds from a known scam website to a KYC-verified exit bank. Please check the specific transaction ID for the real identity. This is irrefutable evidence of federal money laundering. I was sitting in my living room, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to Mr. Smith's smooth voice as he pushed his lies. I had the live evening news playing on the television set on mute. I was listening for the moment of silence and watching for the breaking news. I had to keep him talking, prolonging his final, arrogant moment. "Mr. Smith," I said, playing the desperate victim, "I can't invest more. I need my money back. I don't care about the profit. Please, I just need the $100. He launched into his final confident boast, completely unaware that his world was about to be obliterated by a phone call initiated by a federal agent miles away. "Madam, this is simply the nature of high-yield finance. Your funds are safe, growing beautifully. You should be grateful. You must understand that the money is now completely untraceable, and there is absolutely nothing you can do. It's out of your hands, madam, entirely." He was enjoying his power, savoring the final humiliating defeat of the old lady. As he spoke the word untraceable, the breaking news banner flashed across the bottom of the television screen. The title was blunt and final. FBI agents raid high-end condo in major financial fraud probe. The live camera footage appeared, showing a clean, modern building. I could not see the man, but I knew who they had found. The freeze order had hit the bank account, and the physical arrest was underway. The long, arrogant trail of financial crime was about to end. I quickly turned the volume up on the television, listening to the reporter detail the rapid sequence of events. The FBI had successfully served a freeze order on the suspect's bank accounts and real estate assets, citing irrefutable evidence of money laundering. The agents were now entering the condo. Meanwhile, on the phone, Mr. Smith continued to deliver his arrogant script, his voice oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. "So you see, madam, the money is gone, and you just have to accept this technical setback. And then, precisely as the reporter confirmed the arrest of the suspect on live television, Mr. Smith's voice on the phone cut out completely and instantly. It wasn't a hang-up sound or a crackle. It was a profound, shocking silence. The moment the FBI walked into his condo and seized his personal computer and phone, his link to the world and to me was severed forever. The instantaneous effect of the freeze order and the seizure of his assets was absolute. I slowly brought the phone down from my ear, a quiet, satisfied smile spreading across my face. He was silenced, not by an argument, but by the immediate, unseen power of a simple financial freeze order. He lost his freedom and his fortune because he failed to cover his tracks from a retired bookkeeper who knew where to look. I sat there for a long time, enjoying the quiet triumph. I had not just recovered my $100, I had executed perfect justice. In the weeks that followed, the press reported the raid as a victory for sophisticated cybercrime detection. They never knew that the detection came from a poster board map and a retired bookkeeper. The most satisfying part was the vindication of my old knowledge. The scammers had relied entirely on the complexity of the digital world to confuse the elderly and the authorities. But complexity only works if you ignore the basics. They ignored the fundamental rule of finance. Money must be tracked. The recovery process for the victims was initiated immediately. My meticulous forensic map, which traced the funds from the scam website to the traceable exit bank, allowed the FBI to seize the remaining assets and fully recover the money of every victim who had been defrauded. My $100 was returned to my account. I looked at the notes of the final transaction. My account was once again balanced. My triumph was complete. I had defeated their complex digital system by simply applying the clear, old-fashioned logic of the ledger.
They were too lazy to use 10 fee accounts, and they were too arrogant to think a 78-year-old woman would understand their scheme. They built their entire criminal enterprise on a public ledger, assuming only young experts could read the data. I went back to my quiet life. My ledger's clean, my money returned. I learned that the most effective revenge is never complicated. It is simply the cold, ruthless application of truth. Mr. Smith learned the hard way that when you lie about money, the truth will always catch up. And sometimes the person reading the final receipt is an old woman who understands the basic flow of finance better than the criminals. The ledger was balanced, and the case was closed.